Exactly, Elysia countered, fire behind her words. This isn't about weakness, it's about strength in numbers. And who's to say they won't be watching as we rise? A silence washed over the group before Kymani interjected, a teasing glint in his eyes. Let's just hope our competitors have a sense of humor when they see our grand comeback. Bet you didn't see that coming. Right, the audacity, the nerve. Jasmine chimed in, laughing lightly, breaking the tension. Okay. Ryan conceded, a reluctant smile creeping onto his face. At least we'll have a good laugh as they underestimate us. The atmosphere shifted, rattles of laughter mixing with the tension like rain against the roof. Their resolve began to solidify, each team member igniting their new sense of purpose. As the storm outside raged on, the room filled with ideas, sparkles of chatter dancing from mouth to ear, each member's voice blending into a cacophony of hope. In that moment, Elysia caught Kymani's gaze again, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. She noticed how the corners of his lips curled, that familiar mix of admiration and challenge in his eyes. Let's show them who we really are, Elysia urged, a shimmer of confidence glistening in her light brown eyes. We overcome the odds together. I love the sound of that, Kymani said, his voice deepening, the smile now widening as he regarded her. Scene 32, Love and Sacrifice. The rain hammered against the large windows of Elysia's office, a melodic chaos that mirrored the swirling tempest of emotions inside. Kymani leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on Elysia, who was hunched over her desk, a flurry of papers surrounding her like a white-collared storm. The tension crackled between them, thickening the air. Do you ever wonder if you're just playing the odds? Elysia asked, not looking up as she rifled through contracts that seemed to slip through her fingers like water. You gamble everything, only to end up losing it. Her voice sliced through Kymani's guarded silence. With the tension of his secrets crawling up his spine, he stepped fully into the room, closing the door with a gentle click that felt more like a warning than a seal. And what if the stakes are higher than just your business? He replied, his tone low, yet simmering with concern. What if it's about more than just money? Elysia finally met his eyes, her brow knitting as she straightened. What are you saying? There was clarity in her gaze buried beneath years of self-doubt, challenging the fragile air that surrounded them. They're closing in, Elysia. I thought I could keep you out of it, but... Kymani paused, his heart pacing like the storm outside. If I don't cut them off now, it might. What? She interrupted, standing abruptly, papers scattering to the floor like fallen leaves. You can't drop vague threats and run away, Kymani. I deserve to know the truth. You're not some guardian angel with secrets buried in your past. Maybe I am, he shot back, frustration palpable in the air. Maybe you don't really want to know how deep this goes. I've already lost enough. Elysia took a step closer, her shoulders rigid. I can't lose you too. At the admission, a silence blanketed the room. Kymani's breath caught as their eyes held. Her vulnerability struck him profoundly. She was a wildflower rising through the cracks of concrete, brilliant but worn. I won't let anything happen to you, Elysia, he said, the steel in his voice softened by an unusual tremor. I'm not leaving. Not now. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, a powerless yearning buttressed against the backdrop of chaos. Then what do we do? You never talk about yourself, about the danger that comes with you. Kymani stepped into her space, his towering frame drawing closer, heated breath mingling with the distilled tension. I can't find a way to tell you for fear of what it might do to us, but I'm fighting for you, for us. Elysia barely registered his words. She was captivated by the intensity of his stare, the way his jaw tightened as if he wrestled with something monumental. Are you asking me to trust you? She whispered, heart pounding in her throat like a drumbeat rising to a fever pitch. His hand reached out, fingers grazing the back of her neck, exploring the contours of her beauty, soft, elegant. Trust is the hardest thing I've ever given, but you make me want to. Their faces hovered inches apart as the air around them thickened, spicy with unspoken words and crackling electricity. Kymani closed the remaining distance hesitantly, bridging the unearthly gap of uncertainty that stretched between their hearts. Elysia's heart raced, anticipation coursing through her veins, yet there was a vulnerability fleeting but potent that whispered against the roaring storm, urging her to lean closer. She tilted her head up, and their lips met, an electric jolt passing between them that rooted deeply like a seed taking hold. It was a kiss filled with questions, promises, and dare she admit, hope. As the kiss deepened, Kymani pulled her in, wrapping his arms around her waist, grounding himself in the moment. The sweet scent of her lavender perfume enveloped him, laced with the hint of rain, making everything else fade into a soft blur. They broke apart slowly, breaths mingling, foreheads resting together in a moment that seethed with possibility. "I'm scared," Elysia confessed softly, her forehead creased with worry. "But I want to fight for this, for us." "Then let's make our move," Kymani said resolutely, together. With a shared heartbeat echoing through their silence, they both knew that love was not just a battlefield. They were in it together, come what may. Scene 33. Temptation's Edge. Outside the sleek glass facade of Elysia's office, rain drizzled against the pavement, a serene backdrop that belied the chaos looming within her heart. She pushed away from her desk, the weight of her responsibilities pressing against her chest like a boulder. At a glance, her life appeared ideal, CEO of a rising startup, fiercely independent, ambitious. Yet beneath that polished veneer, shadows lurked, whispering doubts that threatened to engulf her. Elysia turned, her heels clicking sharply against the wood floor, as Kymani entered the room, his tall frame silhouetted by the waning light. Their eyes met, a spark igniting the air around them, filled with unspoken words. The world outside faded into a blur, leaving just the two of them in their own orbit. "Are you all right?" Kymani asked, his voice a low timbre that wrapped around her, both a question and a command in one. He stepped closer, the space between them crackling with intensity. "I'm fine," Elysia replied, forcing a smile even as the tremors of unease rustled within her. "Just the usual corporate drama. You know how it goes." "No, I don't. I choose to avoid it." Kymani leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a playful smirk teasing the corners of his lips. "Corporate sharks are good for one thing, giving me a reason to build better walls. Someone's always waiting to take a bite, huh? Tell me about it." She rolled her eyes, the tension easing as she matched his playful demeanor. "But it's not exactly the time for jokes, Mr. Charisma." "Why not? Laughter is the best armor, after all." Kymani's eyes sparkled with mischief, yet his gaze deepened, turning serious as it held hers. "But seriously, Elysia, you shouldn't shoulder this alone. Let me help." The raw sincerity in his voice sent a thrill through her. "And how exactly would you help? Show up at meetings and charm potential investors while I hand out cupcakes?" Kymani chuckled, shaking his head. "I'd pay to see that. You, handing out frosted delicacies while I work my magic. With your audacity, we'd make a killer team." He stepped forward, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear, the touch electric. Her breath hitched. They stood inches apart, thick tension hanging in the air. "But seriously," he said, his tone dropping to a whisper, "I'm not just here for the laughs. I'm here for you, even if you don't see just how heavy those burdens can get." As hurt flickered in her eyes, she instinctively pulled back, not ready to face that kind of vulnerability. Not yet. "Thanks, but I'm just used to handling everything myself. It's easier that way." "Easier isn't the same as better," he countered. "You think it doesn't hurt me to see you struggling? We could be a force, a real partnership, if you'd let me." "Partnership?" Elysia scoffed lightly, though her heart raced. "What do you know about partnership in a world where power is king? People betray, they take, especially in this industry." "Listen, Elysia," Kymani said, stepping even closer, his voice earnest yet playful. "I know betrayal. I've met it on more than one occasion. But what if, just what if we turned that power game on its head? Put them off balance?" She searched his eyes, looking for the catch, the ulterior motive. Instead, she saw a man ready to fight for her, a fierce protector hidden beneath layers of charm. "Why would you see anything in me worth saving?" she murmured. "Because you shine brighter than any diamond in the rough." Kymani tilted her chin gently, his focus intense. "And if loving you means running headfirst into danger, then count me in." Elysia's breath caught, the gravity of his words pulling her deeper into his unfathomable depths. Suddenly, the pressure of her life melted, leaving only the two of them in the eye of the storm. There they stood, temptation throbbing between them, wrapped in a night that foreboded nothing but heat. "Is this a bad idea?" she whispered, heart racing as he bent closer, the world fading away. "Only if you think it is." His lips hovered before hers, the desire palpable, breath mingling and teasing. Elysia closed her eyes, surrendering to the thrill of the moment, knowing that the unpredictability of love could start a fire only both of them could extinguish or embrace. And as his lips finally met hers, she knew one truth amidst the chaos that surrounded them. Love, incandescent and fierce, truly could conquer all. Scene 34. Reflections of Commitment. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth, a heady aroma that mingled with the fresh blooms in Elysia Ndidi's garden. The soft patter of droplets against the leaves created a soothing drumbeat, somehow both calming and disquieting in its rhythmic persistence. Elysia stood beneath the awning of her expansive terrace, clutching a warm mug of chamomile tea, its steam swirling upwards in graceful tendrils. On such a gloomy afternoon, the world outside mirrored the tempest within her, each bleak cloud a reminder of the shadows gathering around her, threatening to snuff out her dreams. In the distance, Kymani Taragon emerged from the gentle drizzle, his imposing figure cutting through the gray mist. She felt the familiar flutter of her heart, a traitorous alignment of anxiety and longing. Elysia set her mug down with a thud, the porcelain clanking against the wood, and rushed to the edge of the porch. "Hey!" she called out, squinting as more droplets dashed against her skin. "You might want to consider an umbrella next time, unless you're trying to audition for a wet t-shirt contest." Kymani chuckled, shaking his head as if dispelling the raindrops. "You wound me, Elysia. Just trying to rehydrate like a responsible adult." "Adulthood looks good on you," she replied, arching an eyebrow flirtatiously. "Careful, though. You might turn me into a puddle, too." Their banter hung playfully between them, masking the escalating danger that loomed just beyond the confines of her garden, a reminder of the peril that encircled their burgeoning relationship. Elysia stepped forward, motioning for him to join her under the protective overhang. "I was hoping you'd come by," she admitted, her tone wavering for a moment. "The rain just seems fitting, you know? Like an omen." Kymani's expression shifted from playful to serious, his warm brown eyes searching hers. "Omen or not, it's still just weather. What's really bothering you?" For a fleeting second, she considered the storm within the tangled thoughts of what their future could hold. "Everything feels so fragile," Elysia confessed. "With your past and my chaos, I can't help but wonder, what if I lose you? Or worse, what if I become the reason that you fall?" He chuckled softly, the sound both comforting and unnerving. "You're not a downfall, Elysia. You're a fortress. I'd have to be an idiot to turn my back on that." He stepped closer, the distance between them diminishing, an invisible cord pulling them together as the rain continued its rhythmic symphony. "Still, it's hard to ignore the imminent doom hanging over us," she said, her voice low. "This blackmail situation?" "Will be resolved," Kymani interrupted, his tone carrying a fierce determination. "I promise." Promises can be tricky. Elysia tilted her chin up, challenging him with her gaze. "How can I trust that when you've been keeping secrets? Would you rather I tell you everything now and have you run?" He leaned in slightly, the warmth of his presence wrapping around her like a thick blanket. "Trust isn't built on the absence of secrets. It's built on the moments we risk everything for each other." Just as they were close enough to share breath, a flicker ignited between them, an electric charge that pulsed with unsaid words and frayed hopes. Elysia felt her resolve waver, her heart raced, thumping a frantic rhythm against her ribcage. "Maybe I just need a little more security then," she breathed, the air thick with tension. "We can make it," Kymani murmured, his hand brushing against her arm, igniting a spark of warmth that spread through her. "Together, we're a force." And then, as if dictated by fate, Kymani leaned down, his lips hovering tantalizingly close to hers. Elysia couldn't help herself. She surged forward, closing the gap with a tender urgency. Their lips met softly at first, a delicate exchange laced with the promise of something deeper, a knot of longing unraveling into a swirl of passion. Elysia leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his body against hers, the rain cascading around them, echoing the storm she felt brewing inside. As they deepened the kiss, it morphed from soft affection to an unyielding intensity, as if the world outside their makeshift sanctuary had faded into oblivion. Suddenly, a rumble of thunder echoed in the distance, snapping them into reality. It served as a reminder that chaos awaited beyond their embrace. Yet here, in this moment soaked in rain and longing, stood the promise of something worth fighting for. "What if we're just fleeting?" she whispered, pulling back slightly, her eyes searching his. "Or we could be everything," Kymani replied, capturing her gaze with a fierce intensity as the storm continued to rage. Elysia felt her heart race not with fear, but with the fire of undeniable potential. Maybe someday we'll decide together. And as they stood beneath the umbrella of stormy gray skies, now enclosed in their world of warmth, she knew he was right. Together, they were an unstoppable force. Scene 35, finally unraveled. Looming shadows draped the kitchenette of Elysia Ndidi's office, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights casting a sterile glow over the meticulously organized space. The aroma of roasted coffee beans filled the air, a sharp contrast to the bitter chaos swirling in her mind. Elysia stood by the coffee machine, fingers tracing the contours of the ceramic mug in front of her. The weight of her impending confrontation felt like an anvil resting on her chest. As she watched the liquid cascade into the mug, Kymani Taragon appeared in the doorway, his presence a palpable mix of tension and solace. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, his dark eyes penetrating the dimness of the room. Elysia felt a flutter in her stomach, caught off guard by how effortlessly he could anchor her in the storm of uncertainty. "Coffee?" Elysia muttered, attempting to break the silence that thickened like fog between them. "Only if you're willing to share." His voice had that teasing edge, playful even in the intensity of the moment. She turned to face him fully, setting the mug down with a decisive clink. "I need more than coffee today." His gaze deepened, a flicker of vulnerability passing through the bravado. "So do I. What's going on in that brilliant mind of yours?" She inhaled deeply, the scent of fresh brew mingling with the faintest trace of his cologne earthy, with a hint of spice. "I'm confronting the sabotage, Kymani. It's time to take charge before someone else decides my fate for me." A smile broke upon his lips, teasing and yet sincere. "This is when the fun begins, huh? I hope you're not feeling allergic to drama." Elysia chuckled lightly, shaking her head as if clearing away the weight pressing down on her. "Drama? I was practically raised by it." The light moment hung between them briefly, then faded into the reality of it all. Kymani stepped closer, the warmth radiating from him almost combustible. "And what about love? Is that a casualty of this war you're entering?" The sudden shift in tone left Elysia momentarily speechless. Love, with all its complications, was not something she had room for right now. "Love is complicated, unpredictable," she replied guardedly. "I can't afford distractions when my legacy is on the line." He searched her eyes, a silence falling that spoke volumes. The air crackled with unspoken words, with emotional confessions held back by walls they both built around their hearts. "Elysia," he said slowly, as if weighing every syllable, "it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can fight for your company and still make room for, well, something more." She felt the heat rising in her cheeks, the close proximity igniting embers left dormant for too long. His eyes held hers with a fierce intensity, the distance between them shrinking as if the universe itself conspired for them to bridge that final gap. "Is that so?" she challenged, a playful lilt escaping her lips even as her heart raced. "Absolutely." He smirked, and for a moment, the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. "But you need to acknowledge that you want it." The space between them pulsed with uncharted tension, her breath hitching as he took another step closer. Elysia had always thrived on control in her career, over her emotions. But with Kymani, surrendering seemed less like a defeat and more like an invitation to something sublime. "Okay," she murmured, clenching her fists, then unclenching them like a spring unwinding. "What if I do? Then what?" "Then," he said, his voice low and smooth, "we dive into danger together." Before she could respond, he reached out, brushing a stray hair behind her ear, his fingertips trailing down the line of her jaw, a gesture both tender and daring. The world around them faded, sounds of the city outside muted. Their chemistry ignited as Kymani leaned in, the space vanished, their lips merely breaths apart. The warmth of his exhale mingled with hers, a promise lingering in the air. She began, thoughts tumbling like autumn leaves, but there was no time for hesitation. He closed the distance, capturing her mouth with a kiss that held the weight of every unspoken yearning. She melted into him, falling willingly into an embrace that ignited her spirit. The kiss deepened, a symphonic crescendo of passion and urgency, as they surrendered to the moment that not only ignited the air but unraveled the fabric of their hesitations. In that quiet world where nothing else existed, Elysia finally understood. Sometimes to fight for your future, you had to embrace the love waiting on the outskirts, ready to envelop you like the comforting embrace of home. Then they parted, breathless. Kymani's gaze locked onto hers, a silent agreement passing between them. Their fight was just beginning, but together they could overcome. "I guess I'm ready for the drama," she said, humor lacing her voice as she tried to regain her composure. "Just remember, I'm the lead role," he quipped, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "Yes, and I'm the director." Elysia returned his smirk, laughter bubbling between them, the dawning realization of shared resilience blooming in the air. Scene 36. Through the flames. The conference room hummed with a tension thicker than the walls that surrounded them. The air, charged with the scent of freshly brewed coffee, mingling with the faintest hint of smoke from a nearby street vendor, felt electric. Elysia turned to Kymani, her dark eyes piercing through the corporate veneer that surrounded them, and asked, "Do you ever wonder how far we can push them before they snap?" Kymani leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his handsome features unfazed by the dozen suits staring them down from the polished mahogany table. "Every time you walk in here without backtracking, I'm amazed. It's like watching someone juggle flames while blindfolded." She smirked, the corners of her lips lifting despite the impending storm. "Flames are my specialty." Elysia took a deep breath, her heart racing. Behind her confident facade, she felt the flicker of insecurity wrestle with her ambition. "What if I fail?" "Failure's a myth, Elysia," Kymani replied, his deep voice even and soothing. "What matters is how you rise afterward." He stepped closer, his presence a solid anchor. There was something in his eyes, a glimmer of admiration that sent her pulse racing. Just then the door swung open, startling both of them. A rival executive, Morgan Caldwell, strode in, his wolfish grin betraying a hunger for dominance. "Well, if it isn't the fearless duo, are you plotting a corporate coup or just playing dress-up in your little fortress?" Elysia straightened her posture, matching Morgan's bravado. "At least we dress for success, Morgan. It's you who looks like you lost a bet in a thrift store." Laughter rippled through the room, but beneath it lay a current of unease. Morgan chuckled, but his eyes glinted with malice as he leaned closer. "I hope you're prepared for what's coming. I've got a few aces up my sleeve." "What's coming isn't just your business to decide." Kymani stepped forward, an uncharacteristic edge to his voice. "You're out of your league, Caldwell. Back off while you still have the chance." Elysia felt a rush of heat at Kymani's words, the protective undertone igniting a spark within her. They were in this together, fighting side by side, and suddenly the stakes were no longer just about her company. She looked at Kymani, determination blooming in her chest. "Let's show them what we've got." Morgan ignored her, still trying to draw Kymani into his web. "Are you really going to back her up? I mean, come on, Kymani. You could do so much better." "Better than standing beside a parasite?" "No thanks," Kymani shot back, his voice low yet powerful, causing a hush to fall across the room. "Is that supposed to scare me?" Morgan sneered, crossing his arms over his tailored suit. "Your little love affair can't save her." "Enough!" Elysia interrupted, stepping between the two men, the fire within her ignited. "You think you can intimidate me? If I get burned, it will be in the process of building something incredible, not playing games like you." Morgan's grin faltered for just a moment, revealing the insecurity beneath his bravado. "You're making a mistake." "Not as big as yours, darling." Elysia flicked her hair back, eyeing him defiantly. "I'd advise you to tread carefully." Kymani couldn't help but smile at her bold stance. She was a force of nature. He put a hand on her shoulder, a subtle yet powerful gesture of solidarity. Elysia glanced back at him, her heart racing, charged with appreciation. "Let's get this straight," Kymani said, his tone hardening like steel. "Elysia is not alone in this fight. We're a team, and if you think you can disrupt our plans, you've underestimated us both." Morgan leaned back, his expression darkening. "Well, this isn't over. You'll regret this, both of you." He turned on his heel, storming out. As the door slammed shut, Elysia couldn't help but let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You really think we can stand against him?" "With you by my side," Kymani replied, taking a step closer and lowering his voice. "We can do anything." Her breath caught in her throat. There was a moment of silence where everything else melted away, the world around them faded, and all she could feel was the grounding weight of his hand on her shoulder, the magnetic connection that crackled like electricity between them. "Together," Elysia whispered, her voice full of promise. "Always," Kymani nodded, his gaze unwavering. They both knew that the flames were only just beginning to rise. Scene 37, Heart of the Matter. The room was a glass monstrosity, looming over the city, a shimmering testament to ambition and power. As the evening sun dipped low, casting a wash of gold across the polished surfaces, shadows danced playfully, contorting like their swirling emotions. Elysia stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, her arms crossed tightly, a reflex against the tumult roiling inside. The skyline stretched and throbbed beneath a blanket of fading light, yet her mind was not on the beauty before her. It was entangled with thoughts of Kymani and the mounting pressure threatening to crush her very spirit. Kymani entered, the door whispering closed behind him. He moved with a predator's grace, each step calculated yet effortless, his dark eyes scanning the room for her, a heat that sent sparks of trepidation through the air. He paused, watching her for just a moment too long, his presence cocooning the space between them with an almost magnetic tension. "Why are you holding yourself like that?" Kymani asked, his voice low, tinged with concern, yet daring her to let down her walls. Elysia turned, her gaze sharp. "Holding myself? Maybe because I'm trying to keep from unraveling, Kymani." She took a breath, letting the silence stretch taut. "What's the plan now? More secrets? More lies?" "I'm not lying," he countered quickly, then inhaled sharply, tempering his tone. "I want to protect you. You think I want to be your enemy? Do you think I care about your reasons?" Her voice wavered, a potent mix of anger and desperation as she stepped closer, invading his space, her spirit refusing to bow. "I care about the truth, Kymani. Everyone else gets to play in the shadows, and you think I should just stand by? I have a company to save." He stepped forward, reducing the distance between them, his eyes darkening with gravity. "What if I told you that truth comes at a cost? You deserve to see what's coming, but you need to trust me first." "Trust you?" Elysia laughed, the sound harsh and jagged. "Trust is exactly what got me into this mess." Kymani's expression hardened. "You think it's easy for me to stand here? You think I don't feel like I'm losing you every time you look at me like that?" His breath hitched slightly with the admission, cracking like glass under pressure. "Then what do you want from me?" Elysia challenged, her arms now falling to her sides, a nervous energy jittering through her. "This is too big, Kymani. Too perilous. I'm going to lose everything." "Then let me help you," he implored, each word dripping with a fierce desperation. "I'll fight for you, Elysia, but I can't do it alone. We have to stand together." Just then, the office door creaked open and Kayla, Elysia's business partner, popped her head in. "Hey, I brought—" She froze, caught in the electric-charged tension crackling between them. Oops, I can come back, right? Or should I grab a bucket of popcorn?" "No, it's fine, Kayla. We were just debating," Elysia replied, her voice clipped, forcing a smile despite the tumult within. "Debating, huh?" Kayla grinned. "More like two dragons sizing each other up. Can I get a front row seat? I think there's a wager at stake here." Kymani chuckled softly, breaking a fissure in the tension. "A wager? I'll bet you $10 that her fire could roast my scales." Elysia rolled her eyes. "Seriously? You two can giggle while I'm trying to not drown in the flames of corporate mayhem. Got it?" Fine. Kayla lifted her hands defensively. "Just wanted to lighten the mood before I succumbed to the drama." As Kayla gave them a moment's peace, Elysia's heart thrummed with an erratic rhythm. She narrowed her gaze on Kymani, a tempest brewing within her. "This isn't a game. I could lose everything, including you." "It's not a game to me," he insisted, his voice steady, deepening with emotion. "You have to understand, I won't let anyone take you away from me." "Why would you say that?" Elysia whispered, surprise punctuating her tone. "Because," he said, stepping closer still until the space between them was electric with uncertainty. You've made me believe in something again, something worth fighting for. As their breaths mingled, Kymani's intense gaze captured hers, and the world around them began to fade. Elysia felt her resolve waver, the sound of her heart loud in her ears, begging her to break free of the barriers she had so carefully constructed. "Don't you see?" Kymani murmured, lowering his voice, an intoxicating blend of yearning and urgency. "It's time to break through those ashes." And in that charged moment, with the weight of their shared strife crashing against the walls they built, Elysia knew there was only one choice left to make. Scene 38. Unbreakable bonds. Rain lashed against the cobblestone streets like a restless drummer, each drop a reminder of the storm swirling in Elysia Ndidi's heart. She stood in her office at the top of the glass tower, the warmth of her space contrasting sharply with the wet chill creeping in through the large floor-to-ceiling windows. The muted glow from her laptop cast a soft light, illuminating stacks of papers scattered across her desk, like a chaotic battlefield littered with fragments of her dreams. Tension hung in the air, thick and almost tangible. Kymani Taragon entered with a commanding presence, his tall frame cutting through the room's clutter with an effortless grace. The dim light reflected off his deep brown skin, accentuating the fierce determination in his stormy gaze. Elysia noted the tension in his jaw, the way he clenched his fists at his sides, the frustration he was trying to contain. "Elysia, we need to talk," he said, his voice low and rugged, as if gravel had been poured into his words. She turned to face him fully, the fire in her chest igniting. "Talk? You mean lecture me? Because that seems to be what you do best these days." His eyes narrowed, the flicker of hurt crossing his features too quick to catch. "I'm trying to protect you," he shot back, the mix of anger and concern pricking at her defenses. "Protect me or control me?" Elysia's voice rose, cutting through the din of the rain like a knife. "Is this about the deal with Felipe? You can't just swoop in and dictate what I do with my business." "Felipe is a snake. You're walking into a trap." He moved closer, invading her space, the tension between them crackling like the electric storm outside. "You don't know what he's really after. Do you? Or are you just using that excuse to keep me dependent on you?" Her heart raced as her words echoed in the charged atmosphere, each syllable a betrayal of her vulnerability. Kymani took a step back, cracking the armor he wore so well. A flicker of pain danced across his features. "Elysia, it's not like that. I care about you. I care about your safety. It sure doesn't feel that way right now." She crossed her arms, the defensiveness rolling off her in waves. "I can handle myself. I've spent years building this company. I don't need saving." "That's the problem. Nobody expects you to need anyone." His hands were now clenched into fists, the frustration coloring his tone. "But in this world, it's not just about you anymore. It's us. You and me against everything. Do you even understand that?" Elysia paused, the weight of his words sinking in. The truth wrapped around her like an embrace, yet she recoiled at the intimacy it invited. "You think I want to lean on you? You think I can just let go of the facade I've built? Why do we always have to fight?" Kymani's voice softened, the anger slipping away like the clouds blushing at dawn. "You're brilliant, Elysia, but this isn't just about you fighting through the loneliness. It's about us finding common ground, being together through this chaos." Her heart skipped as she searched his eyes. "You make it sound so easy. But what if I fall apart? What if I let you down?" He took another step forward, his gaze steadying her, grounding her in the storm of emotions swirling around them. "Then I'll be right here, picking up the pieces. You don't have to do it alone anymore." Elysia blinked back, the sudden heat in her eyes, vulnerability crashing through her defenses. "But what if I don't know how? How to let someone in?" Kymani's fingers brushed against her arm, and the contact sent warmth racing through her. "Then let me teach you," he murmured, his voice almost a whisper, the words igniting a flicker of hope amidst the turmoil. "Together?" she asked quietly, searching his expression for reassurance. "Always," he replied, his promise lingering in the air, binding them with an unbreakable thread of trust. The rain continued to pour, but within the chaos of their lives, a moment of clarity broke through as they stood side by side, their fears evolving into an unspoken pact, a testament that love, indeed, could conquer their looming shadows. Scene 39. Stolen moments. The rain poured in steady sheets, casting the dusky skyline of the city into a blur of glistening reflections. Elysia Ndidi stood by the grand window of her expansive office, watching droplets race down the glass, mirroring the tumult of her thoughts. The office, a testament to her meticulous taste, was filled with soft lines and subdued colors, yet today it felt like a fraying tapestry, one wrong tug away from unraveling completely. Kymani Taragon entered silently, his footsteps the only sound against the backdrop of the storm. With waves of dark curls and a tailored suit that embraced his build, he seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, and yet there was a calmness in his demeanor, an irresistible anchor amidst Elysia's chaos. As she turned to face him, the corners of her mouth lifted despite the gravity pressing down on them both. "You look like you've been through a storm," she said, trying to lighten the mood, her voice playfully teasing. Kymani leaned casually against her desk, his eyes glimmering with mischief. "And you look like someone who could use a drink, preferably something stronger than water." He flicked a drizzling droplet from his cuff with a theatrical flourish, causing her to chuckle softly. "Why, you think I can't handle my own cocktails?" Elysia challenged, arching an eyebrow, her spirit rekindled momentarily. She poured herself a murky whiskey, the amber liquid catching the dim light. "Depends on whether you're trying to forget or remember," Kymani shot back, a twinkle lighting up his eyes. "Careful, though. I don't want to be the reason you become an emotional mixologist on a rainy day." She took a daring sip, the warmth igniting a flicker of flame within her. "I have my reasons. Trust me, I'm not going to drown my worries in a drink." Kymani stepped closer, the air thickening between them, transforming the space into a sanctuary away from the chaos of their lives. "And what worries do you have that I can help with?" His voice dropped to a low murmur, wrapping around her like a soft echo. Elysia hesitated, her laughter fading as she contemplated the vulnerability that danced on the tip of her tongue. "The company it's more than my lifeblood. It's everything I dreamed of." "Then let me help you save it," he said firmly, but a playful smirk crossed his lips, lightening the heaviness in his proposal. "And I'm not just talking about boardroom tactics here. Think of me as your corporate bodyguard with style." She found herself laughing again, the sound bubbling up unexpectedly, chasing away the shadows that hovered in her mind. "Just what I need, a stylish bodyguard who thinks he can bulldoze through my problems with charm alone. Charm is an underrated weapon, you know." He stepped closer, invading her personal space just enough to flicker sparks of tension in the air. And sometimes bulldozing might be necessary. In that charged moment, the world outside ceased to exist. No clattering of rain, no looming threats, just Elysia and Kymani, two souls pulled into the gravity of each other. The dull ache of afternoon weariness faded as his eyes darkened, locking with hers, holding a promise yet unspoken beneath a veneer of levity. She lowered her glass and took a breath, steadying herself against the tide of feelings that pressed against her defenses. "I don't want to lean too heavily on anyone," Elysia whispered, her confidence fraying despite the strength she projected. Kymani smiled softly, his expression transforming into something tender. "Leaning is a sign of strength, Elysia. It's allowing someone else to share your burden, not a sign of weakness." Just as he leaned closer, water swelled against the window, a metaphor for their tumultuous emotions, weighty and electric. With a sudden burst of boldness, she seized the moment and closed the distance between them, just enough so that their breath mingled. "Then show me how," she murmured, her heart racing. "You know I will." His voice was low, suggesting doors waiting to be unlocked, the potential for both passion and peril glaring in the stormy backdrop. Thunder rumbled in the distance as they leaned closer, their world narrowing to the secret they were about to share in the heart of the burgeoning tempest. "Let's make it a night to remember, then," Kymani breathed, the gentle warmth of his promise wrapping around her like a warm embrace. As lightning flickered outside, momentarily illuminating their entwined shadows, they stood on the precipice, a fledgling connection burning quietly between chaos and calm, sealing the uncharted promise of what was to come. Scene 40, a dark revelation. The air in Elysia's office was thick with tension, the kind that made the vibrant Jakarta sunset bleed through the window, casting long shadows on the floor. Kymani stood just inside the doorway, arms crossed, his brow furrowed in thought, while Elysia paced restlessly. Pages from a report fluttered slightly on her sleek mahogany desk, a testament to her earlier attempt to focus on work. "Why didn't you tell me?" Elysia said, spinning to face him, her voice a fraction too sharp, the heat of indignation glistening in her dark eyes. "I wanted to protect you," Kymani replied, his voice low and steady, yet there was a tremor of vulnerability nestled beneath. She furrowed her brow, a cascade of curls cascading over her shoulder like a dark waterfall. "Protect me? Or is it that you didn't believe I could handle it?" Elysia's pulse quickened. She felt the distance between them widen. "Elysia, don't," he began, his jaw tightening as he took a step closer. "Don't what? Don't ask why you kept your past a secret. I have a right to know who I'm dealing with." Her arms flew up, gesturing wildly, the frustration crackling around them. Kymani sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, a subtle show of the tension thrumming through him. "It's not just a past, it's a minefield." A quick flick of his eyes darted away, as if afraid to reveal too much. "How do you expect me to be in this with you if I don't even know you?" She pressed, the hurt in her voice unceremoniously creeping in, each word an arrow aimed at the heart of their connection. "You think I wanted this?" he shot back, passion igniting in his dark gaze. "You think I asked for these secrets? I never intended for you to be caught in the crossfire." Kymani's shoulders squared, a protective barrier that belied the swirling emotions beneath. Elysia felt a sharp pang in her chest, her resolve wading waist-deep in her swirling thoughts. "So what now? Just pretend it doesn't exist?" Sarcasm dripped from her tone, a bitter taste that loomed like storm clouds over a sunlit sky. No, He stepped forward, closing the space between them. "I care about you, Elysia. This isn't some game to me." Her breath hitched, silenced by the sincerity in his eyes. Two chests rising and falling, the room buzzed with the electric charge of their unspoken feelings. Yet uncertainty clung to the air like smoke. "Then why throw shadows over your own light?" she whispered, the weight of many unsaid words settling around them, fragile yet potent. The silence stretched, a taut wire of emotion that threatened to snap. Kymani leaned against the desk, his fingers brushing against the report she had been analyzing. "Because I'm afraid," he confessed slowly. "Afraid if you see all of me, you'll walk away." "Or I could stay," she retorted, compelled by the gravity of his admission. "But if I'm to stay, Kymani, then you need to be honest with me, no more secrets." A flicker of hope ignited in Kymani's eyes, washing over their emotional tempest like a balm. He reached out, his fingers gently squeezing hers, a soft but firm anchor in their chaotic realm. "I want to be worthy of your trust," he murmured, his voice dropping to a velvet whisper. "More than anything." "Then let me in," Elysia urged, the tumultuous mix of anger and longing softening into something tender yet fierce. "Let's face this together." Just then, a sharp rap resounded on the office door, slicing through the fragile moment. They both jumped apart. The bubble surrounding them shattered, the sharp prickle of reality slipping back in. "Elysia," called a familiar voice, Darius, her smarmy business partner, bursting into the room with a grin too wide to be sincere. "Hope I'm not interrupting anything too personal." Elysia shot him a warning glance to keep him in his place. "Not now, Darius. Just thought I'd drop by, business and all." He smirked, oblivious to the charged atmosphere. Kymani narrowed his eyes, jealousy flaring up like a fire. He took a measured step forward, prepared to reclaim the moment that had still lingered in the air. "Keep it brief," Kymani said, an edge curling into his tone, silently willing Darius to read the room. Elysia cleared her throat, her heart racing all over again, for as they faced this outside interruption together, the realization settled. Whatever shadows lingered in Kymani's past, they had to fight them together, even if it meant facing the demons that brought them to this moment. "Darius, this is important," Elysia asserted, taking a deep breath. "We'll discuss your project later." As Darius shrugged and stepped back, the warmth between her and Kymani rekindled, their resolve at least a little fortified by the storm to come. "Together," Elysia said softly, her eyes meeting his, "forever." And despite the glaring interruptions of their tangled lives, the truth lay simmering beneath every glance, a testimony to the love they were still learning to embrace. Scene 41, The Standoff. A torrential rain hammered against the sleek glass windows of Elysia's office, each droplet a heartbeat against the earnest silence lingering between her and Kymani. The dim overhead lights reflected off the polished mahogany desk, casting the room in an intimate yet charged ambiance. Elysia paced, her high-heeled shoes clicking rhythmically on the hardwood floor, an urgent dance caught between frustration and an undercurrent of desire. Outside, thunder rumbled ominously, as if conspiring with her emotions, a tempest brewing both in the heavens and her heart. Kymani stood in the corner, arms folded tightly across his broad chest, the tension of the moment causing a muscle in his jaw to twitch slightly. He was a tempest himself, dark, brooding, and impossibly magnetic. "Elysia, we can't keep doing this," he said, his voice low and firm, yet it carried a gentleness that belied the storm raging around them. Elysia stopped abruptly, turning to face him, frustration exploding forth. "You can't just keep hiding from me, Kymani. What are you playing at? I deserve the truth." Her voice was sharp, slicing through the heavy atmosphere. The air felt electric, charged with unsaid feelings and the weight of concealed secrets. Kymani walked closer, his aura an unyielding force that pulled her in. "I'm not trying to hide things from you. I'm trying to protect you." His voice escalated, yet it was a rumble more than a shout, the intensity simmering beneath the surface. "Protect me?" Elysia laughed bitterly, the sound echoing like shards of glass hitting the floor. "Is this your version of protecting me? By keeping me in the dark while you deal with your own demons?" He reached for her, fingers brushing her arm, sending a jolt of heat through her skin, igniting something deeper, something furious and tangled. "Demons? I don't," he started, but she yanked her arm away, a storm in her eyes. "We're not talking about this to avoid each other, Kymani. We're talking about a gang of criminals threatening my future. My whole life hangs in the balance, and you can't even share why you've been threatened." Tears pricked the corners of her eyes, a frustrating mix of anger and vulnerability, making her feel powerless. Kymani's expression shifted, fury blending with an emotion she could only categorize as desperation. "I swear, Elysia, I'm doing everything I can to keep you safe. If you knew." He hesitated, as if balancing on a precipice laden with unspoken truth. "Then tell me." Elysia's voice cracked, layers of authority melting beneath the tremor of fear. "What is it that's so dangerous?" Thunder rolled and the rain intensified, mimicking the chaotic match of emotions in the room. Kymani's eyes flickered with a pain so raw that Elysia felt herself soften, drawn to him like a moth to a flame. "It's my past," he said, his voice hushed, laden with weight and shadows. "I'm being blackmailed, and if they learn that you're involved—" "Then what?" she interjected, her heart racing. "You think you can just sweep me up and keep me safe in a bubble? You can't stand there looking at me with those eyes and pretend like it's only your life at stake. I deserve a chance to fight for my own future." The heat between them swelled, sparks igniting as they drew closer. Kymani reached out again, this time cupping her face gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. "I don't want you hurt, Elysia. You're everything I never thought I could have. It terrifies me." Elysia searched his eyes, a mix of longing and exasperation colliding within her. "And you think keeping me in the dark is love? Don't you see how this could tear us apart?" The room fell silent as the weight of the storm echoed their conflict. Ultimately, the intensity of their connection shone through the thick haze of tension, neither one moving away. In that charged moment, they were each other's lifeline, standing on a precipice neither foresaw, vulnerability testing the very fabric of their existence. Kymani leaned in, his breath warm against her cheek. "I want to save you, Elysia," he murmured, the desperation in his eyes anchoring her in the moment. "But I need you to let me in." "Then let's stop this dance, Kymani," Elysia replied, her voice thick with emotion, letting the last notes of her frustration dissipate. "Let's stop hiding." And just like that, the storm swirled around them, waiting for both of them to take the leap. Scene 42, Trust in Shadows. The conference room was silent, save for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Elysia stood by the glass wall, her silhouette framed against the city skyline, a patchwork of grays and blues stretching into the horizon. Her breath quickened as she replayed the confrontation from earlier. Kymani's dark eyes, the weight of his secrets hanging in the air like storm clouds ready to burst. Kymani leaned against the heavy oak table, arms crossed, his profile etched in sharp relief. The tension between them crackled, an electric current that both terrified and exhilarated her. A word hung in the air, trust, and although it lingered unspoken, it loomed larger than their fears. "I didn't expect you to understand," Elysia finally spoke, her voice a blend of frustration and a deep-rooted need for clarity. She turned to face him, momentarily losing herself in the way his brow furrowed thoughtfully. "I thought you were different." "Different?" Kymani's voice was a low growl, his gaze locking onto hers with unexpected intensity. "Elysia, the world I come from, it doesn't allow for trust like we want it to. It's survival." Silence wrapped around them like a thick fog, the kind that suffocates before giving way to clarity. "What do you want from me?" Elysia pressed, moving closer, feeling the gravitational pull of his presence. The faint smell of sandalwood and something bracing mint perhaps clung to him. "I thought we had a chance,